Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
Welcome into Judd's Hockey Show. Yes, that's right. We are back now that the Wild is back. You cannot keep Zulgad and AJ Fredrickson down. We will be back doing multiple shows per week. We would ordinarily have been joined because the invite was put out for Jesse Pierce today, but Jesse's enjoying some time in Wisconsin being intoxicated, I think. So we did not bother her, which is absolutely fine. I did see a note that the beers were going to be cracked early this morning. We're recording this on Friday. A lot to get to today because Craig Leopold held what I would just call his State of the Wild address in his suite last night between periods. He does this every preseason. And sometimes ordinarily it's all great news, and sometimes it's sort of not great news. And I think that's what we might have here. But before we do that, I want to tell you about an opportunity. If you're going to Grand Casino Arena to get a great bite to eat pregame, and that would be with our friends at Parlor Bar, absolutely outstanding. Now, I don't need to tell you about the Parlor Burger. That's like Kirill Kaprizov. I'd be preaching to the choir. We all know it's great. We all know he's a fantastic player. But can I interest you in the chicken sandwich? Because the chicken sandwich scores a lot of goals too. I'd say I'd put the chicken sandwich on 35 to 40 goals per season. It's sort of good Matt Boldy-like. So don't sleep on the chicken sandwich. Don't sleep on the great service. Don't sleep on the craft cocktails or the outstanding array of beers. It's a great place to stop in St. Paul before a Wild game. It's a great place to go in North Minneapolis or in the North Loop in Minneapolis. And also don't forget their location in Excelsior Parlor Bar. All right, AJ, let's get right to it. So Craig Leopold, what he does is we watch the first period in his suite, and then after the first period, he comes up and he takes questions. So and he answers questions between the first and second period. And then when the game is going to start again, it's a preseason game, but he still has to get back to his seat. Yeah. So he was making his way up or he was coming up from his seat to the back of the suite, which obviously has tables and stuff, which were gathered around to listen to him. And as he's coming up, I hear him say, "No Kaprizov questions." But he's sort of a gregarious type of guy. Like he's not like Mr. Serious, where it's like, oh boy. So I think we all thought, oh, is he kidding or is he serious? And he said, no, I'm serious. No Kaprizov question, or I'm not answering. You can ask him. I'm not answering Kaprizov questions. And so that sort of started off a odd back and forth. And the fact is that a year ago in that very same suite, AJ, Craig said, nobody's going to offer Kirill Kaprizov more term or more money than us. He was right. It got out that they offered 8 years at 16 million AAV, which would have been the richest contract signed for now in NHL history. So then a couple of or about 3 weeks ago, he said at an event at the X where the reporters talked to him that he was really excited to sit down with Kirill, that he thought it would move fast once they did. That's where the offer clearly was made. And Kirill said no. And so that gets us to last night, where Craig was clearly, it wasn't just him either. He had clearly been told, don't talk about it. And the difference between last night and like ordinary is Bill Guerin, the Wild GM, will often come into the suite like during this time that the press is there, and he'll shoot the breeze and then leave. Well, between periods, when Leopold was going to talk, he came back and stood right within earshot. He wanted to hear what Craig said. And when asked initially about why won't you talk about Kirill Kaprizov, Craig said, quote, "There's nothing to gain and everything to lose." And just to be very clear, he didn't mean like it's all in his mind. He didn't mean all is lost with Kirill, but he's basically saying, if I talk about him, because things have been out there, and he, it's funny, we don't know who leaked the contract information on Kirill. It could have been, we just don't know. It could have been Kirill's camp. It could have been the Wild. It could have been third party. But the report now from Elliot Friedman Sportsnet is Kirill was upset about that, like embarrassed that it got out. Yeah. So then Craig said, when asked about the fact that saying that I just read, that it would cause concern with fans. Hey, he's like rarely shuts it down and he's shutting it down. Craig said, then they'll be disappointed, but you guys will report it very nicely, and I won't be damaged too bad. So Kirill Kaprizov is either very close to signing a contract, and Craig doesn't want to screw that up. That's wishful thinking, I think. Or Kaprizov, basically everyone is on high alert, been told to shut it down. Nothing is still close, and not surprisingly, we got ourselves a problem, and this does nothing to make anyone feel better about the current state of the Kirill Kaprizov talks.
And that's where tone and like context is super important, because if you just see that sentence of nothing to gain, everything to lose, I immediately go into like full on panic. I go into this like this just mental state of everything is going downward. I think like that could be jokingly, and like you said, like the way that he phrases it is, it makes it sound exactly like one of two ways. It's either we are on the verge of their signing pen to paper almost today, or he's already out the door mentally, and it's just a matter of, either the next 10 months or submit a trade list or something along those lines. I'm glad that he did feel, have a little bit more of a leash this year, and I understand that he owns the team. So he theoretically should be able to do and say whatever he wants. But we saw it last year, and I think I have been critical enough of him multiple times on this show even about those comments, which is you're not making it any easier for Bill Guerin to do his job. And that's where Bill Guerin kind of hovering, kind of staying within earshot. I'm sure there was a previous conversation before you guys sat down, which was, hey, Craig, I love you, and we have a great relationship here. But if you could just shut up about this one topic, I don't care if you want to talk about whatever else, this one thing, we're making ground, just cut it. Because it doesn't do you any good to have it out there for an agent now salivating that you said no matter the term, no matter the money, you would top it. And this is what we're telling you we want. So we need... It makes it too easy for the agent and the player to have such a high leg up on negotiation talks. And then on the other side of things, when it comes to expectations, much like I'm sure Kirill wants some better line mates at times. If you go remember back his first like training camp, the accidental text of, I know play with bad players. And I'm paraphrasing there for the sake of the family show. He's very blunt about stuff. He wants to play with good players because he wants to win. So when you say, yeah, we're going to go out and go ballistic, it's going to be Christmas in July, we're going to sign a winger, we're going to sign a center, and he's probably thinking, oh great, we're going to get through this year and it's promising, but we're going to get even better. And then we get to now, he's back from Russia. Guess who's still your top line center? It's either going to be Marco Rossi or Joel Eriksson Ek. And who's your top line wingers? Well, it's Matt Zuccarello, who's hurt right now, or it's a Matt Boldy. Not that he doesn't enjoy those guys or like playing with those guys, but he was expecting, a shiny new car in the driveway, and he came home to find the lemon. The 69 slug bug that's got dents all over is still in the driveway waiting to be taken out for a Sunday cruise. So I like that. Based on his comments, like he didn't say anything, but we can infer that things are getting close, or if days expired here now and a week goes by and we don't hear any progress, I think we can at least start speculating things are probably a lot worse than they would lead to believe.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say this. One is, I didn't come away from this feeling good. Like you do have to consider that there is an option that could be positive. I didn't come away just gut feeling from this feeling good. It's a negotiation. Mm-hmm. Because we know what they were offered. I'm curious what they want. And I'll get back to that if they want something from the Wild at all. And that's a whole discussion as well. So it's not like I think, they are on the verge of a contract. That's just a potential possibility that will make fans, or should be something to keep in mind for fans. But all of that being said, I came away now that we're going to get radio silence here. I came away from this saying, okay, so this whole thing's weird. Like the contract leaked out. Everyone's saying, I didn't leak it. Somebody leaked it. Now, did somebody tell a third party? Did someone tell the Blackhawks or the Rangers, and they got it out there? I don't know. Now, I will say that I did ask Craig directly. I said, "Are you concerned about tampering?" Because I think it was Elliot Friedman, Sportsnet, brought up the fact that there appears to be or there could be tampering, and Craig said, "Yeah, I'm concerned about it, but I have no evidence it's going on. So, like, if it's going on, we'll find out. But I don't think." There's concern that it could happen. Am I concerned it's happening right now? Craig said, essentially, no. But the other thing is this, too. And I keep coming back to this age, and I don't know exactly what's transpiring here, but it really feels like it's not a coincidence that when you look at the guys that are going to be on the market July 1st, 2026, Kirill Kaprizov, Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, there's a list of about 5 or 6 really good players, and the first 3 I just named are superstar players. I mean, I think we all agree Connor McDavid's the best player in the league. And it feels like it's more than a coincidence that none of these guys, like everyone was eligible to sign an extension on July 1st. And I think it was Leon Draisaitl, some point in September last year, signed his extension. So it's certainly not odd for it to go into September. But the fact that everyone doesn't even feel like they're close. I don't know if it's agent collusion. I don't know what, but I just, the more and more I think about this, I would say just focusing this on Kirill is missing the big picture. The salary cap is going up. I think it's unprecedented that the league didn't basically. They came out and announced the exact what it's expected to be for the next 3 years. Yeah. It's going to go higher than that, obviously. Yeah. I mean, and that sucker was flat for how long, or it would go up by $1 or $2. So the Kaprizov conversation in this town is the sexiest thing to talk about because it's your star player. But I'm getting more and more hung up on the fact that none of these guys are signing. I haven't read, and I don't read a ton of Golden Knight stuff, but I haven't heard anything about Eichel. The McDavid thing I know is ongoing, but it's also, again, the Oilers like trying to keep him happy. Hey, he'll sign when he wants to sign, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is, if you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together, it feels to me like this goes beyond Kirill Kaprizov, and it's sort of an alliance of guys trying to align for what is going to take place here. Everybody wanting to leave enough salary cap room for their team to be competitive, but everybody also wanting to break the bank, which at the end of the day, there's also probably pressure coming from the Players Association to maximize these contracts, because we know for a fact the Players Associations get involved in this sort of thing and say, do not take a discount, do not help your team, because when you help your team, what you're doing is you are hurting your fellow union members, in this case, the NHLPA.
Maybe it is just kind of like that holdout, but it is weird that you haven't heard much. I haven't heard much about Jack Eichel stuff.
That's what I'm saying. I haven't heard a thing about him.
And I'd say his situation, although super, super similar, he's also 28 years old. He's also a superstar. He's also very crucial to his team, but it's a different situation in the fact that he's won a cup with that team, I think, too. Like if Kirill had already won a cup with the Wild, I'm not saying I wouldn't be as urgent for them to sign him and have the same desire, but there is that small fact of he's kind of done the job he was brought here to do already. And I'm not saying that Jack Eichel can just walk and it's all fine. But the pressure, I think, presumably is on the Wild with Kirill, because frankly, their 25-year history hasn't been all that, the glitz and glam. This is their guy. They have to keep him. And Connor McDavid, he is the best player in the league. He's arguably the best player in hockey history. And he's on a team that's gotten there 2 years in a row and has come up short 2 years in a row. And they're a Canadian team. So you kind of have that whole, the cup hasn't gone back to Canada for however many years now. So I would really hope that at the end of the day, all it is maybe just they're trying to wait and see. It's that who's going to take the first step.
Well, and are we giving Kirill? Are we? And this is a question, so it's not take. Are we giving Kirill too much credit for wanting to like that this is all about a cup, which it could be. He's competitive as hell.
Yeah.
When if you look at the list of guys who aren't signing and aren't even really, close to signing, that this is all just far more of a financial play in a National Hockey League that, as far as its finances are going, is just changing drastically. And these guys are all, for lack of a better term, the players are pawns in the agent's game, because look, it is equally as crucial to the agent to cash in as the player. The player gets paid, the agent gets a cut, but more importantly, the agent gets reputation points. Like if I'm Eichel's guy and I make Vegas's life hell and I win, and Kirill signs, McDavid signs, and then I get as much or more than I get more than Kirill, and $2 less than McDavid. So, like, the conspiracy theorist in me just feels, if this was just Kirill Kaprizov, I would say the problem lies with he wants to win, or there's something like between the Wild and him. But because the offer was so good, and I think it's been proven that the offer that got out 8 times 16 was correct. Mm-hmm. To me, it goes beyond it's about Kirill. To me, it becomes and the fact that Leopold, it's not that he didn't just comment. He wouldn't even express any confidence. Like Craig Leopold goes around, he is a glass half full. He is the opposite of sports dad. Mm. He is a glass half full. He lives his life, enthusiastic about tomorrow and certain his team is going to win, no matter how much I might say you're not going to win. So for him not to comment and for him to be muzzled about this, I think there's a fighting chance that this all goes beyond one guy and this is about the league. Now, I'm going to read you a quote while you were talking. I did a quick search on Eichel, okay? Yeah. Elliot Friedman's reporting on Eichel a couple days ago, and this also applies to Kaprizov. Teams are trying to hold the line, and players and agents are saying our percentage is going up. Everybody is waiting for someone to go first. I think Eichel right now is at a number the Golden Knights aren't willing to go to yet. So if the Golden Knights came in today and said, okay, Jack, we'll offer you the Kaprizov special, 8 times 16. Mm-hmm. I don't know who takes that. Because if you go first and if you go first and you sign if you sign an 8-year contract, I think it's going to come down to 7 after July 1st because of the new CBA agreement. Mm-hmm. But if you sign that contract and the cap, as is expected, I'm sure, continues to go up and up and up, you just took a team-friendly deal that in 4 years, people are like, what were you doing? Why did you sign that? And I think, just for a point of reference, if I'm not mistaken, a player can make 20% of the cap. So, right? So Kirill would be, I think right now, if Kirill signed a contract, he would be, quote unquote, capped at something like 19.1 million per season.
My question back to you then would be, you already have this deal in place that will be that is the biggest deal hypothetically in NHL history. 8 years, 16 million a year. It's more monetary value than any other contract in the league. So what if that's not enough and you're trying to play this kind of like team game player wise of trying to get as much, and so nobody signs 16, all of a sudden, like a week later, well, McDavid, he's going to sign for 18 and a half. And all of a sudden you look like a buffoon, because why would you not take that more when you're just as important to your team as he is to his, and et cetera, et cetera. Right. How much higher can you go as the first guy? Because unless these deals are going to be announced, boom, 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 the first person, if you go higher than 16 million, is going to be, one, they're going to be lauded player wise. And as much as, and back to your point too, which is we don't know, are we giving too much credit to Kirill about the whole winning thing and all that stuff? There's a lot of guys in the NHL that have made a living, like a very good living, and have never won a cup. So like, it's a very, very small group of players that win a cup. So I understand him wanting to worry about his life after hockey and all that stuff, because they don't play the game until they're 65, 70 years old and then retire. They're done. Some guys at 32, some guys at 38, 40, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And compared to the other four major sports, hockey or the NHL, they just don't get paid similar. Like we're talking about the biggest deal in NHL history with 8 years, 16 million potentially. In the NBA offseason, some guy that I've never heard of who plays 4 minutes a night, he's making that and then some for the Utah Jazz. So it's different cap situations, obviously, but
Sure.
It just befuddles me to think if they would have came in lower than this 16 million, I understand there's room to work. I just don't understand from a negotiation side, where do the Wild go here now? Because do you bump it up to another 500,000, another full
let
million?
me throw this at you.
Yeah.
Do you think that they are at odds? And this again would account for all of the star players. Do you think that they're at odds? Because what I might do, the more I think about this, and I'm literally trying to, as we discussed this, or as I was listening to Craig last night, I'm literally trying to think about, okay, what's going on here? And like, what big picture? What about this? What if these camps are saying, okay, we know the salary cap for 3 years and it's rising dramatically. And in year 4, it's going to probably rise again. We'll do 3-year deals and that's it. Like we will take the cost certainty unless you think your client is going to get hurt, which by the way, I don't think McDavid and Kaprizov and Eichel, who by the way, the latter two have been hurt, but I don't think they deal in, oh man, I should take the money and run. And so what if they're saying, we don't want to do 4-year deals, we don't want to do 5-year deals, we want to do 3-year deals because of the certainty of the cap at that point. Mm-hmm. And I could see teams being like, whoa, we want to, that means that, in 3 years, we got to turn around again and do this dance. But I wonder if that's it. I wonder if they're trying to say, we are only going to go as far as the cap because the certainty means you get the percentage that you deserve, at least in your mind. Year 4, if it goes up, because it's going up by what, 7, 8, 9, I think Craig said.
Yeah.
So if it's rising that dramatically and continues to, unless you're very concerned about your health, I could see the agent saying, no, let's go 3, cap certainty. And then after that, let's try and break the bank again because it could go up another 8 in the 4th year.
I don't know if it's, I don't picture anybody like taking into account like, oh, we've been hurt before. Because think about it in your daily life.
I agree with this.
For Joe, whatever, who goes and plays softball, if he rounds third and rolls his ankle, do you think like he's thinking, oh, this is gonna be a thing. Well, I'm always gonna roll my ankle. He knows he's gonna get healthy at some point. And these guys have state-of-the-art doctors, they have programs, they have rehabilitation centers where they can get back on their feet and heal whatever ailment. And unless it's terminal, unless you have a terminal illness, that's the only reason I would say, yeah, take the 8. But I also think it's not the worst thing in the world. Like obviously a GM wants to keep their star player for more than 3 years. But I don't know if it's the worst thing franchise-wise in the long run. Like, would I like 4 years from Kirill? Yes, I would. But if you said he's willing to do 3 right now, and it's at a deal where it's, would you think if he's doing shorter, it goes higher monetary or lower monetary, or does it stay at that 16?
I think you could get okay. First of all, I think again. My personal opinion has been, I think that you want Connor to sign first because he's going to establish, not that Kirill Kaprizov is going to get what McDavid does, but that's then your starting point.
Yeah.
So my thought process is this though, just like there's Players Association puts pressure on players not to take discounts. Is there an internal pressure from the league itself? Yeah. To say we're not going to start, because keep in mind this league has, and I don't know exactly why, but they sure as hell have, and we've been subject to this. This league has taken into, well, it's a star player. We're just doing, at first it was 13-year deals, and then it was 8-year deals, and now it will be 7-year. And I wonder if there's concern among the owners that the players, these star players, are going to start to control things. In 3 years, let's say McDavid does a contract 3 years, and in 3 years, the cap's gone up, and he's like back at the feed trough saying, okay, hit me again. And the owners are like, hold on a second. We try, we don't want to continue to pay you more and more and more. So it just, that's where I feel like, everyone going silent too. Everyone being pretty silent too. That's where I feel like there's way more behind the scenes than we know. And it doesn't just involve one player. It involves, because the league is not going to, Bill Guerin is not going to come out and say, okay, guys, here's the scoop. The owners are putting huge pressure on us not to do, we can do a 3-year contract tomorrow, but we're getting huge pressure. And Kirill's agent, I think his name is Paul Theofanansis, he's not going to come out and say, well, hey, here's the real deal. Pressure from the Players Association is incredible. Kirill loves it here. He likes many, but so that's where the complete silence now, to me, goes beyond the Kirill Kaprizov negotiations and sort of trickles down to where everything is going. And if there is a big 3 for July 1st, 2026, it's McDavid, it's Kaprizov, and it's Eichel.
Yeah, the only other guy I think that maybe sniffs that is Kyle Connor, but he's not as dynamic. He's a step down in my mind. But
he's a really good player, but yes, he's not one of them.
I just don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world for the Wild or the Oilers or the Knights to sign their superstar to an additional 3 years and just calling it there, because you got to remember, these guys are all under contract for an additional year. So in a sense, you get 4 more years of this player, 3 more years again before you have to start thinking about this type of stuff. Right. But in a year in and year out, how many changes to the parity of the league do you see where some skyrocket in cup hopefulness, whereas others, maybe they miss their window and all of a sudden they're back down? You look at the Predators last season. Everybody thought this is a team that all of a sudden they got all these veterans. They added Marcia Show. They got Stamkos. This is a team that's going to be serious. And look how serious they were. They were a laughingstock for most of the league because they just couldn't score goals and they couldn't do anything. So all of a sudden it looks like they're set back. And on the other side of it, you have teams that are rising that maybe kind of came out of nowhere. So much happens on a year-to-year basis to where 4 years from now, 3 years from now,
I agree with you.
Your franchise might not even be close to being competitive. So wouldn't it be nice to have the door to part ways with a superstar that can help reignite your franchise with prospects, with draft picks? This is back to the point about the salary cap compared to the leagues. This is not the NBA where one player can make you be a competitive team. You need 2 solid forward lines. You need 3 really good defensemen. You need a very capable goaltender. One guy doesn't do that for you, but if you get draft picks and you have a good franchise and you have this big process off the ice, that's where you become good. So it'd be nice to have that out. I'm not saying I want that. Obviously, I think you still would rather have your superstar be here long term, but it's not the end of the world. It's not a hill to die on, in my opinion, for a franchise to say, no, we're not doing 3 years. We can't do 3 years. We have to do 8. We have to max you out.
But that's my point is what if this isn't the franchise? What if this is the league? So that the Wild's feet is to the fire, because I'm with you. Now, first of all, I'd prefer 4 to 3, but I would do 4 in a heartbeat.
Yeah, same.
But it makes no sense then that's not done with anybody. It's not done with McDavid. It's not done with Eichel. It's not done with Kaprizov. And so I am with you from a franchise standpoint, but that's when Craig says I'm not talking, is that just true because, and by the way, everything he has said about Kirill has been favorable. Like there's been no Craig, oh my God, I can't believe you said something and it's going to make, we're going to pay him more is not going to make him mad.
Yeah.
Joking about, that they are saying that they expect to get the deal done. And at the time, I think when Craig talked about it in early September, he said, the check's in my pocket. Is that really going to make Kirill mad? No. So that's where I wonder if the silence goes well beyond Kirill, because yes, what you're saying makes perfect sense for the team. So what doesn't make sense here? If it was one guy, if McDavid signed, okay, he's done with the Oilers, right? Mm-hmm. Eichel signed, he's done, Golden Knights. And Kirill's like, I don't know about you guys. Then I'd be like, okay, he just wants to win. And he can get more, or he can get a 7-year contract and he'll be very rich. But the story in every market is the same. And in Canada, Edmonton, the McDavid thing is huge. And the Oilers have done everything that they can just to sort of be like, oh, it's going to happen. Don't worry about it. We're doing this, blah, blah, blah. the Vegas Golden Knights are very popular, but they're the Vegas Golden Knights. It's Las Vegas. They ain't going to get hung up. And they just got Mitch Marner. So like the Eichel thing, they've got their shiny toy right now. But we are insecure. We are, and we are a hockey market. So this Kaprizov thing is certainly not what McDavid is in Canada, but it's a big deal to us. But none of these deals are done, and all of them appear to be mirroring each other is why they're not done. And that's where I think if the Wild could do a 4-year contract tomorrow, I mean, if they didn't, everyone should be fired. I'm trying to make sense of something that I think there's more to it than what we're seeing or talking about. And, everybody's shutting it down right now too. Like, just, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it. I love Mini. No, first of all, Krill, quit calling it Mini. Nobody who lives here calls it that. But that's where I think that we have, that's where I think that we need to start to not ask more questions. That's being done. That's where I think that we need to rethink this as more than Kaprizov negotiating with the Wild. That's where I think it's a league thing. Also, how do you feel about the state, the county, the city, you kicking in to make improvements to Grand Casino Arena? Because that was, if Craig didn't want to talk about Kirill, he wanted to talk about his building. And look, just to be clear here, they want major improvements. Like the Wolves need a new building. Craig is not saying that they need that, but he is saying, in fact, here's a,
and he shut down the paired building idea, correct?
Well, they didn't want to shut it down. They basically said, okay, we'll just go, give us money. We just want money. And then the extra building, I think, what they want to do is, I believe they want to get rid of the River Center, the old Civic Center ramp, and build there and do like a hotel and stuff. But that got put on the back burner. But I can tell you right now, they want improvements here. And I think that they want substantial ones. Just paraphrasing here from one of the things that Craig said. He said the business is good, that sponsorships are off the charts, season ticket sales, I think he quoted a 93% renewal rate. But he referenced the fact that, but he quickly then said business is good, but Grand Casino Arena is lacking revenue opportunities. So there's definitely pressure to advance out of the first round, because he also said a second round run. He said on a playoff run, and this is from a business standpoint, not necessarily a hockey standpoint. He said, quote, a second round run is really important. A third round run is outstanding. They're important not just for the moment of that season, you were selling tickets and everything, but for the next year's season ticket sales go up. We haven't had that luxury, and we feel like we will and will be ready for it. Well, first of all, I don't know that's true. But second of all, they definitely...
I believe he'll be ready for it because he's been waiting for it for over a decade.
Well, we all are ready for it, but he also wants to see the checks come in. Yeah. He said, the county is now talking about it. He didn't want to characterize the conversations. The county is talking about it. St. Paul is on board with trying to help. But the one interesting thing he was asked about, would you partner with the Timberwolves? And he said, they're staying in Minneapolis. We're staying in St. Paul. I didn't say it, but I thought, well, at least one of those things is true, because I'm not sure where. And if the Wolves do end up out towards the Mall of America at the former Met Stadium, Met Center complex, then the question becomes, okay, you said that they're staying in Minneapolis. So if they're not, would you join them in a joint venture out there? I don't know. But I just thought it was interesting that was a big time primary talking point. And they're basically saying that they're playing in an outdated building that's, while not dilapidated, it is, I think Craig's quote was, when you look behind the walls, there are a lot of things people don't see.
And this is maybe one of my biggest like pet peeve things from owners. You make you just told me about how many people renewed their tickets, and all this sponsorships. Hey, our helmet deal, we just added whoever and blah, blah, blah. That money's rolling in, and we got Tria on the chest because we can't not have Tria on our chest. And we've got Grand Casino. They outbid the Xcel Energy Center, and they're our flashy new building sponsor. but we're also so poor. I can't afford this new plaza. Can you please kick in mom and pop store down the road? Pay for it yourself. I'm sorry. I'm not business savvy, but it's ridiculous to me that you see these sports owners all over the country want, Micah and Tabitha up in Hibbing to kick in their hard-earned, and obviously not really, but somebody down the street who is working a table shift at the parlor. Hey, you live in town and you frequent the building, so how about you kick in some
it's taxes on things like that too on the bar itself.
Exactly, and that, but also then it's like the threatening of, well, you love getting that chicken sandwich at Parlor Bar and then catching the Wild game, but if we can't be there, who knows where we're gonna go, and then you can't get that tasty, delicious chicken sandwich before a nice Wild game. So
and what happened? And what happens too, AJ, if Alex Rodriguez and Mark Laurie, who now own the Timberwolves, they've said that they are going to privately finance. That's the plan now. Mm-hmm. And just to be clear, they would almost certainly need some financial help with like infrastructure things. Like I think what you do is you build the building, but if they stay downtown and let's just hypothetically say they go from Target Center to the farmers market site behind Target Field, things would have to be moved, like big things. You'd have to reroute things, and the city or the county or the state would have to help with that. But if they build the building and you're Craig and you're like, I got to have help here, and the Wolves are like, okay, we're building our building. How's that received?
Yeah, I mean, that makes you, for a franchise that I think has been topically over the last 25 years more relevant, but in terms of like popularity recently, the Wolves, with their success, I mean, they have a superstar. They're making runs. They look like a very competent franchise. That would be a major blemish for Craig Leopold and the Wild as a whole. My fear, and you see this with other ventures around, what was it, the Nets and the Islanders with Barclays Center, which is they build this new building, and granted, it's a really cool building. It's a very nice sports venue, but you get in there and it's like, why is there this car right outside the
well, you got to be careful with that. Yes.
And then the scheduling, and then the whole, especially high school hockey tournaments, the state tournament with being at formerly the X, now Grand Casino, like how you schedule that, because now you have to worry about two professional sports teams, and if they want to get concerts and stuff, and that's going to change how things go. And granted, I think the X would still operate as a concert venue even if the Wild weren't housing there, but it would, I think, complicate things so much. And then also in terms of the player side, hockey wise, ice quality, if you're going, granted, we live in 2025 now, so this isn't like they are in the 1980s and they have to melt things down and whatever, and then they just roll out what is essentially your community rink outdoor pond for NHL game. But it's not the same as the Bell Center, where it's a dedicated, widely regarded by players as some of the best ice in the league because they only do hockey there and they live hockey at the Bell Center. Mm-hmm. It just complicates things in the long run. And so I'm not sure it would be smarter, I think, for the Wild to have their own building and just renovate the X. But if you can't do that financially, like it's a very weird conversation that we're going to see whether or not the Wild actually can and what the Timberwolves want to do. Because if they want to build their own building, that kind of paves the way for a lot in terms of what they want to do with the Wild.
Well, and there's a good chance that if you're the Wolves and you're going to build your own building, that you actually don't want to share it because of sponsorship things and that. What's interesting is how much of the X or the Grand Casino ideas are improvements. I think they want a second loading dock for concerts because now when concerts show up, there's so much stuff. It used to be just one, now they want two. But they also, to what you just said before, is that there was the original idea of like a hotel and a restaurant. Do you really need that? They're going to say, yes, we need the revenue. And then back to your point, I think the citizens are going to say, well, then build it. And the one thing about Barclays was that was built for basketball, and the Islanders then tried to move in. So like Others were never part of the original concept, and that's where you build a building for basketball. And then the Coyotes had the same problem when they originally played in Phoenix because they were playing in the Suns arena, and like I think you couldn't see if you were in the upper deck behind a goal, you couldn't see that goal because it was built with basketball.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 buildings is ideal. One can be worked if you can do it if you go in with the concept of how it's going to be built for both sports. But I mean, Target Center was built for both sports and they bragged about it. And it was, I don't know if you ever saw a hockey game there. It's awful for hockey. It was absolutely, because it's basketball. Yeah, it's terrible for hockey. It's angled wrong for hockey. It's angled perfectly, or it's angled, I shouldn't say perfectly. It's angled well, and it really was at one time for basketball. But yeah, so that was the main topic for Craig. Craig was top of mind arena. Reporters were top of mind your superstar player. And I'm not sure anyone got the satisfaction that they wanted. But the Kaprizov thing to me is, it becomes more and more intriguing the less people say, because I think it's an indicator of a league issue as much as it is a Wild Kaprizov issue. Be back next week. We're actually going to do a show early next week on Tuesday where AJ is going to, as part of Judd's Hockey Show, Road to the World Junior Championships, of course, December 26th, starting at Grand Casino Arena on 3M at Mariucci. AJ is going to lay out some of the best prospects because, as we've talked about before, World Juniors is an absolute plethora. If anyone's going to be, if you are going to play in the National Hockey League and you know it right now, you will be on these teams. And then we'll be back on Wednesday, of course, with another Judd's Hockey Show on the Wild with Jesse. And of course, if something happens over the weekend, especially Kirill, we will jump in and do an emergency episode as well, because hockey season is here. We are back, and we'll talk to you later.